Ryan Moermon goes off against Jacksonville State. The Arkansas Razorbacks are coming up next. We need to talk with Derek Vandygriff and find out exactly how this went down.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I am Steven Willis, host of the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, the most viewed Ole Miss podcast in the history of Ole Miss Podcast. So we are very proud of that. But we're going to go to Derek Vandygriff coming up. Derek, listen, Ryan Moermon just absolutely went off, including a grand slam walk-off on Sunday. Is this sustainable? He's probably the best hitter they've got, right?
He's definitely the hottest hitter they got. There's no doubt about that. It's really nice seeing him going into SEC play here, though, right? He's really swinging it well, and it's not just the home runs; it's the doubles as well. He had that double on Saturday, and he's walking a good bit too. He's not going up there hacking. That was one of the things we talked about preseason about if Moermon be able to translate to the SEC because he struck out so much at Illinois. How would he handle SEC pitching? Good news is we're about to get the answer to that because we're almost to conference play. But all indications so far is his approach has been really good. He's got a short swing. He swings it hard. When he gets there, he's been barreling everything up, and he can drive it out of any ballpark. He's got absolutely killer power, and he's shown that so far in these first several weeks with Ole Miss. And like you said, that grand slam to walk him off on Sunday, had another home run earlier in that game. He's just doing everything right now, and that's obviously a really good sign for Ole Miss.
Yeah, 15 games in, he's hitting about 400. He's got 6 home runs on the season. I guess this weekend he had, 9 RBIs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He leads us in basically every major statistical category besides home runs. He's 1 home run behind Judd Udemark right now. He's got 6. Judd has 7. But leads us in RBI, I believe, slugging, total bases, all of that. So yeah, he's off to a heck of a start right now. Playing a pretty good defense out there in left field too. Whenever they put him out there and DH Federico, those two kind of swap in and out, playing left field and DH. And so where he's been in the lineup, wherever he's been playing, he's been not only as good as advertised, in my opinion, he's been better than advertised. And we're going to need it too because this conference is absolutely loaded with really good pitching. Luke Hill, we've seen him obviously handle SEC pitching before. He was really good last year, but you need other guys that can drive him in once he gets on base. And right now, the 3 transfer outfielders, those are all guys that have really performed well so far between Humphreys and Sanford to go along with Moermon. But Moermon seems to be the key to all of this right now, him hitting right there behind Luke and driving in those runners. It's been great to see.
Yeah, it's weird seeing because all of the outfielders, you're right, I think they hit on them. Last year, they did not hit on every outfielder. There's a couple guys they just missed on, and that hurt them. But it looks like at least going through non-conference, they've hit on them. And Mitchell Sanford, he is somebody that's interesting because he's a guy that when he gets going, he's just an inning extender. He's not going to allow you to put up a crooked number with a home run. He's a guy that at some point, no matter what's going on, he could just slap a double into the gap or hit a ball down the line. It's just an inning extender.
Yeah, he's got probably the prettiest swing on the entire team. Me and Hitch talk about it a good bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again, that if there's anybody who wants to just go up there and swing the bat, it's Mitchell Sanford because he's got such a pretty swing from the left-handed side there. He was able to power one out there on Sunday, I believe it was, to the opposite field, was able to sneak over the left field wall there. But yeah, I mean, and his approach to the plate is what's so good. Even when he wasn't going earlier in the year, he's really struggling hitting the ball. But again, he walked, he got on base, and he plays a really good defense. Now the bat's starting to come around. Obviously, the glove's not going anywhere. He's going to be a top-end defender, whether he's in center field or right field. They've been interchanging him and Isaac Humphreys between center and right, back and forth. both of them are stellar in either position you put them in. But Mitchell's really starting to come around that left-handed swing, and that's another thing with him. Him and Isaac are both lefties. Moermon's the righty, right? So you're able to break up those lefties and righties in the lineup. You get Federico that's switch hitter, and then Luke Hill that's a righty. And then usually you'll have Isaac Humphreys or Sanford in the three-hole, Moermon cleaning up, and then the other lefty behind him, then Judd Utermark. So you're not able to bring in somebody from the bullpen as a lefty specialist or something to come get out two, maybe even three guys at a time. If you bring in a guy, then you're going to expect him to pitch to a righty as well. So there's a lot of balance in this lineup, and that's what you want to see, especially in the top end of that lineup. And they're really producing right now, which is what obviously we need to see. And we're going to get a huge test this weekend with Arkansas, because that's might be one of the best pitching staffs in the entire country.
Yeah, top 5 Arkansas. They struggle with Charlotte, but it's a good baseball team.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, very good team. I was talking to somebody about them last week, and they were talking about how they weren't really impressed so far with Arkansas. I said, look, if those bats ever get going, then they're a really dangerous team, because they're going to pitch the ball, and they've done that so far this year. There have been a couple hiccups, and one guy in particular who we'll talk about later on in the show when we get to the Arkansas series and start talking about that a little bit more in depth. I think there is a spot where Ole Miss needs to take advantage of. But look, this is a really good baseball team, number 3 to 5 in the country, depending on what poll you look at. But look, Ole Miss is a really good baseball team too, right? We've won 13 straight games, dropped that one game to Texas and Arlington. We haven't lost since, and credit to them. We've been down in some of these games so far this year, and in the non-comp, we've been able to find a way, battle back, get the wins. I'm not sure previous teams these last couple of years would have been able to do that. This team believes it can win. They keep fighting, they keep grinding, and they find a way to get it done. I don't really care who you play. When you win this many games to start the year, that means you're a good baseball team, because baseball's got a way of jumping up and humbling you and knocking you back down against anybody. It doesn't matter how good you are and how bad they are. Usually you're bound to drop one. Credit to Ole Miss, we've only dropped the one, and that was to a really good Texas team so far. So, yeah, right now Ole Miss baseball is rolling, and it's time for the real season to start.
Yeah, and that was as close to a road game as Ole Miss has played this season, playing Texas and Arlington. It wasn't a true road game, but it was probably a 75% road game in that one. The first road game is going to be tonight. As as people watch this, it's on Tuesday. That one at USA. USA usually has a pretty good little baseball program. The Jaguars hit it around. What do I need to know about USA?
Yeah, they're down a little bit so far this year, Stephen. They're only 9-6, and when I initially saw their record, I thought, well, let me start going through this schedule, see who all they've played. As you get a lot of these Conference USA teams and Sun Belt teams, especially in this area. Just like Jacksonville State, if you want to take them for example, you go looking through their schedule, and they had already played Alabama twice. Now they've played Ole Miss 3 times. They're going to play Auburn twice later on in the year. They play a lot of these regional SEC teams. South Alabama has not done that so far this year. They haven't played anybody of note. They're 9-6. Looks like they really struggle pitching the ball. They've given up a ton of runs so far this year. I don't imagine their midweek starter is going to be any better, whoever they decide to pitch tonight on Tuesday. So I expect a bit of an offensive outburst, maybe a confidence booster for Ole Miss heading into this weekend against Arkansas. This looks like a game that Ole Miss probably should handle pretty convincingly. But like you said, it's really the first true road game that we've been on, going down to Mobile. So it'll be good for the guys to get that under their belt, with Arlington being more neutral site than not, at least against Texas. Against Arizona and Clemson, I'm sure we outnumbered them there in the stadium. But, yeah, it's kind of get their feet wet with some road game. Go down there, handle business, dominate, and come back and get ready for the Razorbacks.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we will talk to Derek all about Hunter Elliott looking human. Hey, Ole Miss still won the game, and we'll talk about some of those young bats and where they are at the moment as well. So stick around for that. First, I do want to let you know about the Armada Team of the Week. It's brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the new all new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcased their strength and power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut team of the week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shower's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate, are probably going to be runner-up. Cooper Flagg just ripped through the ACC, going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 points in ACC tournament games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953 and 1954. That must have been a heck of a team that Adolph Rupp had at Kentucky at that time. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can win the all-new Nissan Armada or any other of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. So let's go back to Dids real quick. Dids, we'll get to Hunter Elliott in just a second. The young bats, Hayden Federico hit a home run from the left side, and honestly, post-game, whenever they asked him about it, he seemed genuinely surprised that he hit that home run, which makes me, it's like, okay, I guess that's what happens when you barrel everything up. Eventually, one's going to get out of here. But Federico's still doing his thing. How the young guys look?
Yeah, kind of like I said, obviously this is led by Federico, and he's just been incredible. Like I said, that big 2-run shot on Friday to give us the lead there. Also, like I said, he's barreling everything up. It doesn't matter if he's from the left side, the right side. And just, again, a really good approach, a guy that's walked a lot more than he's struck out so far this year. Every time you put him in the field, he's done his job out there. Going to some other of the young guys, Smithwick's obviously still struggling a little bit. There's some things behind the plate I haven't been happy with. Kind of going back to last year, we're still seeing it carry over a little bit this year. Saw it Sunday. There were a couple balls that got by him. One of them hasn't been talked about because nobody ended up advancing on it. The other one did, obviously. But then he's really struggling at the plate right now, too. And, last year as a freshman, he really turned it on in SEC play, hit over 300. It was kind of just like Will Furness his true freshman year. He struggled in the non-con, turned it on in conference play. Maybe Smithwick can kind of follow suit there and do the same thing. We'll find out if he's given enough of an opportunity, because right now I think Fowler's looks so good behind the plate just from a receiving standpoint, and all he does literally is hit home runs. He's got 4 hits on there, and every single one of them have been home runs. And he's handling the pitching staff. He's been good back there. So I think you're going to start seeing Fowler start at least 2 games behind the plate every single weekend. Maybe Smithwick gets it going at the plate and he's able to work his way back into a little bit more playing time. But see, what Smithwick had going for him last year is we also had spots in the outfield. We had a DH spot that was available as well. We had places we could put him besides catcher. That's not the case this year. We've got 3 outfielders, really 4 outfielders that are really playing well when you put Federico into that mix. But the DH isn't available because of the Federico Moermon swap out in left field that they're constantly doing. So that's not there for him. So now if he's not playing catcher, he's just not on the baseball field. Pano, obviously the true freshman this year with so much hype. He's hitting the ball really hard. The bat's going to come around. I have all the confidence in the world in that. That's the difference with him and Smithwick right now is at least when Pano's swinging it, he's not rolling over the top of it. He's not hitting soft fly balls into the outfield. He's at least barreling it up, but it's getting hit right at people right now. Now, he has his own defensive struggles right now as well. Obviously, on Sunday, had that error in the first inning, I believe it was, on a ball that didn't look particularly difficult. It's one that he should have gotten. So he's going to have to get better at shortstop, because right now we've got a first-year shortstop, not a young guy, obviously, Luke Chain, that ended up starting a couple games there. And he's really handled the shortstop position really well defensively. That's been one of my bigger surprises so far this year. I never thought anybody would ever take over for Payno at shortstop, but Chain's come in, gives you quality at bats, and plays a really, really good shortstop there defensively. But I think Payno eventually is going to get it going, though, because like I said, he's hitting it hard. Just got to clean up some things defensively. Maybe you put him at second base a little bit, because that's a little bit of a revolving door right now. Like, that's something you can at least mess with. So maybe you start seeing him play a little bit more at second base, kind of like we did Luke Hill last year, to kind of get him going before he moved back over to short.
Yeah, and Hunter Elliott finally looked like a human being in his start this weekend. Ole Miss still won the game, and it was that's a game, honestly, that Ole Miss lost last year. It was a situation where that happened. Ole Miss lost that game just every single time. Ole Miss was able to get the W, and when Hunter Elliott, who was ill apparently, and dealing with some effects of sickness, but he tried to give it a go, didn't have his best stuff. I do not think you're going to see like that version of Hunter Elliott against the Arkansas Razorbacks. No.
And, Luke Hill ended up not playing on Wednesday night with the same thing, had a stomach bug. That's why he was out. So I'd say it kind of trickled down to Hunter, and he ended up giving it to him, would be my guess, because I heard the same thing you did about him being a little bit under the weather. But, yeah, he really struggled with command, really with all pitches, but particularly the fastball. There was one time in the third inning when he had the bases loaded, had the batter down 0-2 and really had a chance to get out of that inning. Comes back with the fastball inside, plunks him right there in the rib cage, right, and ends up driving in a run with the hit by pitch. And as soon as I saw that, I knew that was just about it for Hunter. He just didn't have it that night. He wasn't going to be able to bounce back from all that. But gets through the third inning and then gets another out into the fourth before we bring in Mason Morris, who I'll get to here in a second. But yeah, to your point, Hunter, I don't think you're going to see that version of him again the rest of the year. He hasn't pitched in a long time. He's due a bad start. That was his one bad start. And that sucks for Arkansas, because I bet they would have wished that would have come this Friday. But I got a feeling they're going to get a laser-focused Hunter Elliott by the time that game Friday night rolls around. But I do want to touch on Mason Morris real quick, though, here, Steven, if you don't mind, because he, I think, was the player of the weekend for Ole Miss. He turned the entire weekend around. Because if you end up dropping that game on Friday, maybe you start getting into your head a little bit. You give Jacksonville State a little bit of confidence coming into Saturday. But Mason Morris was absolutely nails. Comes in 4 2/3 innings, strikes out 7, only gives up 1 hit, and it was 0 after 0 after 0 after 0. And that's what gave this offense a chance to get back in the game when you had the Humphrey home run or the Fowley home run and the Furness home run. Then, of course, the Federico 2-run shot to give us the lead finally. So Mason Morris was my player of the weekend. I think that everything hinged on him, and good on him. He's been incredible ever since the start of the year for us. And look, credit to Mike Bianco, too, for bringing him in there. But because, do you really want to throw one of, if not your best reliever, when you're down early on Friday? But Mason is a little different because he's able to give you length as well and save that bullpen. That's what he did. He carried us all the way to the 9th inning before Connor Spencer came out and slammed the door shut with the perfect 9th inning to secure that win. So I just wanted to shout out Mason Morris. That was a huge performance by him on Friday.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we'll talk to Derek about the Arkansas Razorbacks. A little woo pig suey coming up this weekend. Attention, Locked On Ole Miss fans. Ever wish you could directly support your favorite Ole Miss athletes and be part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that helps put fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and the fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players that you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing Ole Miss. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back, so it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of Ole Miss sports. Download the Roy app now directly from the App Store and start backing Ole Miss athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. The future of college sports. Join it by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Big weekend this weekend. Ole Miss is taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks. This is a game that everybody probably should have circled because the Ole Miss-Arkansas series over the course of the last 10 years or so has been pretty good year in and year out. So it's kind of a fun way to start it up. What do we need to know about the Arkansas Razorbacks?
Yeah, this has become one of the better rivalries in the SEC between Ole Miss and Arkansas. Some of it probably has to do a little bit with how many times we've met up in the postseason as well over the last 5 or so years to go with it. But again, kind of like mentioned earlier in the show, one thing you got to know is they can really pitch the ball. They got 3 starters, Gabe Geichel, Zach Root, and Landon Batishis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there's a whole lot of consonants thrown in there with just a couple vowels. So that's the best I'm going to be able to do on their Sunday starter, Landon. What I'd mentioned earlier in the show, though, Stephen, where I think Ole Miss needs to attack Gabe Geichel, he's an incredibly talented pitcher. He's their Friday night ace for a reason. But for whatever reason, he's really struggled so far this year. He's got a 6.16 ERA. He's allowed a 2.47 batting average and 18 hits in 19 innings of work so far. Over those 19 innings, 13 earned runs, 19 strikeouts, and 9 walks. If we get the good Hunter Elliott like we talked about, which we're fully expecting this Friday, then this could be a position where you're able to jump out on Arkansas early, maybe get that Friday night game and really set yourself up to try to get to this weekend in Oxford, which I think is completely doable. But then their Saturday starter, Zach Root's been really, really, really good this year. 21 innings pitched, a 2.11 ERA, 36 strikeouts to only 6 walks and a 156 batting average against. He's been absolutely dominant. Yeah. It's absolutely going to play. Only 12 hits in those 21 and a third innings. And then Landon there on Sunday, a 2.37 ERA as well, 20-3 strikeout to walk ratio there. So, again, this is a team that's really going to pitch it. Timely hitting is going to be the key here. When you get guys on base, particularly in scoring position, which Ole Miss has done a pretty good job of figuring out ways to get guys in scoring position, being able to generate runs, manufacture runs. We got to be able to take advantage of it this weekend and jump out ahead of them early in these games and allow our bullpen to kind of slam the door. And like I said earlier, the big knock on this Arkansas team was whether or not their offense could keep up with their pitching. If they could score enough runs, then they would be a really, really, really good team. Bad news for Ole Miss. They've started to score runs. Now, it hasn't been against the best competition so far this year. They've only lost to Kansas State. They do have wins over TCU and Michigan, all that down in Arlington the week after Ole Miss played there. But there hasn't been a lot of competition since then. But over their last 5 games against UL Monroe and Portland, they have mustered up 64 runs over those 5 games. So they've been really good. And it's led by the Elliott brothers, shortstop and DH combo there. They're batting .468 and .433 respectively, combined 12 home runs and 13 doubles and 47 RBIs between the two. They've been absolutely electric, those two brothers have. So that's obviously where we're going to try to key at, try to get those guys out. Don't let them beat you. Make somebody else in this lineup come up with a big hit. Brent Ireland, their third baseman's also off to a really good start, hitting .408. Also with 6 home runs. So it's a pretty deep lineup. They're still trying to figure some things out. It looks like mixing guys in and out. They got a couple guys that have just been inserted in the lineup the last couple of weeks that are really hitting well. So we'll see if maybe, this pitching staff can figure out a way, one of them being Zane Becker, the freshman catcher, which, that's going to be a story with Ole Miss too. How does the freshman Federico play? It's always about how these freshman hitters transition to the SEC. So that's going to be interesting to watch, but definitely starts with the Elliott brothers. Got to keep them under control this weekend.
Yeah, good grief. You mentioned their numbers. It's like, okay, do not mess with those guys. Those. If you get beat, they're the ones that beat you likely.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. If you come up with first base open, it may not be the worst thing to maybe not come straight out and intentional walk them, but definitely don't give them anything to hit, kind of like they treated Judd against Murray State this past weekend in the midweek when he come up and had a chance to walk it off. I said to myself I would intentionally walk him, but they basically did. They didn't give him anything to hit and ends up putting him on first base. But you got to be careful with those two guys. They're incredible baseball players. This is a really good team. They've been a really good team ever since Van Horn has been there, and this team's probably not going to be any different. It's going to be a fun weekend in Swayze. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates. We got some rain in the forecast for Friday. storms in the forecast for Saturday, potential rain for Sunday as well. So maybe we'll be able to get all three of these games in and the weather won't be too bad, hopefully.
All right, let's change gears real quick before we let you go today. The SEC tournament starts this week, and Ole Miss is going to get the winner of Arkansas and South Carolina. And everybody's thinking Arkansas. Well, South Carolina 2 weeks ago beat Arkansas by 20 points. Is one, that's a weird situation. But the Arkansas Ole Miss game or the South Carolina Ole Miss game, you just kind of want Ole Miss to play well, and you hope Ole Miss can get that. And then you hope that Auburn can almost do you a favor and send you home at that point, so you can get the rest leading for the NCAA tournament instead of having a 4-game run in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, man, look, if you told me we ended up dropping the game to Arkansas or South Carolina, whoever comes out of that, you're not going to hear me get too upset about that either. Look, we've got our spot locked up. I know you've been talking about it a lot on your show every week. Only way that we're going to get helped in Nashville is if we make a really, really deep run. Maybe even to the championship game. Maybe you're able to change a seed line or something like that at that point. But I'm not putting all of my eggs in this basket. This isn't the tournament I'm worried about. That tournament starts next week. That's the one I'm looking forward to. So whatever happens in Nashville happens. I'm not going to be too upset one way or another. I'll be tuned in. I'll be watching. I'll be pulling for the Rebels to win every single game, just like I always do. But I'm not going to be the one that gets really upset if we get bounced early in Nashville and come on back to Oxford.
Yeah, I think the Goldilocks zone for Ole Miss fans looking at it is probably a 6 seed. Ole Miss should be hoping for a 6 seed.
Yeah. And look, that's perfectly fine. Just keep me out of the 8-9 game. Anything outside of that is gravy as far as I'm concerned. And look, hell of a job by Chris Beard before we get out of here. He's done an incredible job, what he's done with this roster. I've said it on my show. I know you've said it as well. I mean, he's easily a top 5, maybe top 3, might even be the best coach in the country. Just what he's done has been incredible. I hope we're able to keep him in Oxford, obviously, and look forward to many more years like this coming up.
Yeah, and to anybody that's watching this that might be interested in Chris Beard, the coach that's not an Ole Miss person, just because you want him does not mean he is going to leave. He has to want you. You might want you, but there's no guarantee that he wants you. So it's not as complex. Everybody, all the Indiana fans are starting to populate my videos over Chris Beard. Yes.
Yeah, well, look,
yeah, of course you want him.
It
doesn't mean he wants you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Stephen, like we're hardened to this. We've been through this with Lane Kiffin and football and all that. And it's just like you said, like this isn't the same Ole Miss, okay? We have resources. We put money into our programs. We pay our coaches elite money. And we have the NIL and the revenue sharing, thanks to the SEC, once that ends up going through, that we can get elite players here too. This is a place you can win. And when coaches get here, see Oxford and see the resources that get put in it, they realize this is a place that you can win. Lane Kiffin has seen that. Obviously, he hasn't gone anywhere. I don't expect him to go anywhere for a while, unless it's maybe an NFL gig or something like that down the road, because there's not many college jobs that's going to put as much money as Ole Miss does into their program. And look, basketball's right behind it. They're obviously Keith Carter being a basketball guy. He really funnels money into that program. And after this year, he's just going to up it even more, I would imagine. So I expect Chris Beard to be back. Indiana fans, though, appreciate y'all dropping by.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Derek Vandygriff, Dids, tell me what we got going on this week on Ole Miss After Dark.
Yeah, you got a show up right now with me and Hitch, obviously talking about the Jacksonville State series, the sweep there. And then we'll be looking into Arkansas a little bit deeper. So if y'all are interested in that, hop on over to the SEC After Dark YouTube channel or go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, search Ole Miss After Dark. We're up on that as well. And if we have anything besides that show out for the rest of the week, if we have anybody on Talk Arkansas or whatever it may be, y'all just make sure to follow me. Little fat dids there. You can see if they're on the screen. And Ole Miss After Dark on Twitter, and we will tweet that stuff out to you and make sure that y'all know the episodes are coming.
Yeah, good stuff. And to Ole Miss fans that follow Ole Miss baseball and like Ole Miss baseball, there's not a more in-depth person you can follow about Ole Miss baseball than Derek Vandygriff. But Derek, man, I appreciate it, buddy, and we will talk to you next week, man.
I appreciate it, bud.
All right.